So, morning folks, how you doing? Welcome to the channel. Bright and early as usual, still dark here. It's 10 to 6, but there's so much to do in the day. I like to get up and get ahead of things nice and early. I want to show you this hoodie because I think it's pretty cool. Okay, so it's got the Grundens logo there on the back. Really liking the Grundens gear. It's pretty cool. Uh, they're an American and Swedish outfit, really big in the pike fishing world, right? Not so big in the Irish saltwater scene yet, right? But if they're wading boots or anything to go by, I certainly am gonna push some of their stuff because it's quality gear. Like they've got this. I've spoken to you before about, but they've got this hexagonal grip system in their wading boots, and if you're like me, 52, and a little bit wonky on your feet, then studs are super important. So it's like a double stud, right? You get this hexagonal, big thick hexagonal washer, and then a stud that comes out of it. So it's grip, right? You get to double down. It's a pretty cool system. Um, Not cheap, but wading boots never are cheap, right? And if they are cheap, they're going in the bin in 6 months, right? Um, so today, I'm going to talk to you about one of my favorite types of fishing, hard lure fishing, right? Hard lures have totally gone out of fashion, and I do not understand why. Like, what are the benefits to hard lure fishing? One, they feel great. I love fishing them. Like I love, and it flies out right, and you're bang bang. I love the feel of them. Right. I love how effective they are. Right. Um, while I think of it and I think about hard baits, it always makes me think of Trevor from the Channel Islands. I heard Trevor is not well. So if you're watching this, Trev, uh, those were great days in Banos, brother. And stay strong. And a big shout out from Ireland. Um, I heard you're not so well, so I was upset to hear that, man. You were great crack. We were fishing a sandbar together, and there was no stopping Trevor. He was gone. He had that feed shallow. It was the first time we'd gotten the feed shallow. Mick, Mr. Fish from Jersey, had brought them over, and we were hammering this sandbar at the front of an estuary, and I hung back. I was fishing the X layers, but the lads were all fishing the shallow, and some guys were 300-400 yards, and off in the distance, way out on the tip of the bar, there was Trevor. And he came back in, and he's like, "I've had a 72, I've had a da-da-da." But he's so enthusiastic. What a great guy. So, yeah. So you've got friends in Ireland thinking about you, Trevor. So, uh, stay strong, my friend. Um, Great memories. But so why I love hard lure fishing? Reason number two is not only do they feel good, but they work incredibly well. Like there are days when a hard lure will outfish anything else. And I was talking to Mick again there last night, Mr. Fish. And if there's a man who's been in the tackle business, from the get go, right, actually is probably responsible for bringing a lot of this tackle to the European market, right? Certainly to the UK market, and promoting it and showing like, look, this is really good stuff. Prior to Mick, it was pretty basic, right? Um, so I'm trying to think of the word. Sorry, an innovator. In the world of fishing, he really has, and a bloody nice guy. and recently granddad. So congratulations, Mick. You're one of the good ones. Um, but he said he does a lot of boat fishing, Mick. Obviously in Jersey, it's like the tide strips for a mile and a half or something. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. It's like incredible ground, right? I mean, it just and it's gone. And next thing you're like on a lunar landscape, right? And the wrasse there hit hard lures, like they absolutely mullah hard lures, like And I remember we were fishing and it was pretty quiet. I saw a couple of bass mooch out from under a set of trestles and da da da. We had a drift, and I hit a fish. And the boys are like, "Oh, it's definitely a wrasse. It's a rocky. It's a rocky. It's a rocky." And we don't get pollock over here. And sure enough, huge pollock came up out of the water. So, um, but those were good days. But sorry, I keep digressing from the subjects in hand, which is hard lure fishing, right? So there are days when they will just outfish anything else, and they allow you an incredible amount of diversity if you have the right type of lures, right? So, how do you know which lures to choose? Well, that's the crucial question for any fisherman, right? So, the type of lure you fish is going to be totally dictated by the type of ground you're fishing and the type of fishing you're doing. Are you fishing from a boat? Are you fishing from a kayak? Are you fishing from shore? Okay. If you're fishing from the shore, it's going to predominantly be one or two scenarios. Well, three scenarios. Like Bob Moss, God rest him, right, was a fantastic angler from the Dingle Peninsula. I'm sure some of you have read his books. If you haven't, go out and read them, right? Uh, Behind the Third Breaker is one, and A Guide to Fishing the Dingle Peninsula is the other. I always used to ring Bob on my way down to Dingle. I used to go down to Dingle quite a bit. I'd ring Bob and he'd tell me where there was a few fish going. We'd meet up and da da da. He was an absolute gentleman, and a very accomplished lure angler. He was lure angling when the rest of us were also bait fishing. He was an English gent who thought outside the box, right? Um, so if you're lure fishing from the shore, the chances are you're in the estuary, you're on the beach, or you're on the rocks, right? And that's what Bob used to always say to me is, look, Pat, it's like this. There's only three places they can be. They're either in the estuary, they're on the rocks, or they're on the beach. And we're going to try all three. Eventually we'll find them. And I was like, yeah, okay, that makes total sense. So I fish hard lures in all three of those scenarios, right? So again, terrible, right? So I can't wait to get this new camera so I can show you things properly. I'm actually going to open this up because they're not selling, so I'm going to keep this for myself, right? I'm just going to write it off into the business because these are such a good lure. So this is now called the Cockeye 140. I have no idea why they changed the name. It used to just be the X140, right? So again, the picture that they have, so look at the weight transfer in that ball bearing transfer system in that. I mean, it's phenomenal. You got to give it quite a flick to get those. See, three ball bearings are down, right? And now they're back up. Right, you can see them there. You got to give it quite a hammer to get the bearings down. So once the bearings are sat down, right, that lure is loaded and ready to cast. Okay, and on the right rod, that thing will go a country mile. I mean, look at the golden sheen off the back of that lure. Now, the Cockeye or X140, I'm just going to call it the X140 because that's what I know it as, but it's the Cockeye 140, has a really tight action. Like when you fish it, you can feel it on the rod, right? And if you jerkbait fish it, right, so which means give it a little trick down, it'll dive down and then it'll wobble slowly back up, right? That's often when you'll get a hit, right? Now, I fished that particular lure there quite a lot. At a pinch point in an estuary I fished, right? Well, what's a pinch point? A pinch point is a spot where you can cover the whole channel, right? So any fish that went in that are coming back out have got to go past you, right? So you got them pinched, right? And there's one, I mean, it's incredible. You can fish 30, 40 yards to the left of this spot and not touch a fish, right? But you know where this spot is and get on it and be armed with the right equipment, okay? So what happens is the water is flowing out and it's dug out a hole. The bass sit down into the hole and they let the water flow over the top of their head and they just watch, right? So they're naturally inclined to look up, you know. I remember when I was a kid, I had this fishing book and I loved it, you know. I used to leaf through it every night, like, you know, it's like, oh, geez, I wonder will I ever catch a bass, you know, look at that. And had a picture of a guy, you know, on a surf beach bent into a bass on a beach caster, and I was mystified by it. Like, it was like, oh, geez, I'd love to do that. It'd be so cool, like, you know. Little did I know, little did I know it would actually turn out to be like the kind of defining thing of my life, right? You know, the one thing you could say that I did consistently throughout my whole life was fish, and particularly for sea bass, right? I fish for all sorts now, but I mean, sea bass are number one. So um, so that lure has a really, really tight action, and and when you cast it in this particular spot, you just let it wash over the top of the fish, right? Because the current is giving it lots of action, and you give it the odd little twitch to get it to nose down, right? And that's pretty much it. And boom, you know. And oftentimes I'll find almost like a wet fly. It's when it starts to straighten out. That's when the fish hit it. And you bang, give them one and fish on, right? Now, other days I'll fish it more aggressively and I'll be rod down, ding, 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 you know, jerking it from side to side, working it through. Like play around with them, right? Find out what works in what situation, right? Know what type of lure you're fishing, right? Am I fishing a floating lure that's a shallow runner? Am I fishing a sinking lure? Am I fishing a deep diving lure? You know, if so, why, right? You know, get to know your equipment. Like, you know, IMA's a good company, right? IMA, right? They're a good company, but all our lures are pretty much, well, I don't want to say that. That's not true. But like, there's a lot of the kind of the Suzuki style Komomo casts and wind it back in, and that's pretty much it, right? And yeah, okay, fine, but a little bit boring, right? I'm not a huge fan, to be honest. I like them, but and I've caught a lot of fish on the Suzuki particularly, uh, but not a huge fan. Just not. I mean, just not my cup of tea, really. Um, I would much rather be casting a duo, right? And maybe that's just because I started fishing duos and love Lucky Craft, because I started fishing Lucky Craft, and I still fish the same lures today as I did 20 years ago. Now I do fish some of the newer editions too, right? Um, so that there that I was showing you is absolutely lethal on the beach as well, right? Now it has to be if you've got big waves rolling in or whatever, that's just going to get washed away in you. So don't even bother. Don't even bother trying, right? But what you can try on days like that is a sinking lure, right? So that's the Spearhead Ryuki 110, right? SWS, right? So saltwater sink, okay? So that means that when you flick it out there and you can count it down and it's falling, 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 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and begin your retrieve, right? And then the next time, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and begin your retrieve. And eventually you'll find, okay, where are the fish hanging or whatever, what level they're in, right? And if you're from the boat and you've got the Helix Pro or whatever, or you've got whatever fish finder you've got, you should be able to see what depth those fish are at, right? So it's going to be much easier to get the lure into the strike zone, right? Now these are a little bait. The Duo Realis jerk. Now, they cast like a Wellington, right? They don't cast particularly well. But the people they should be of real interest to are kayak fishermen. Because they are an extraordinary trolling lure. Like if you troll that around behind your kayak, it's just got a phenomenal action. I mean, look at the size of the lip on it, right? So you can see it's got this big, hard, round lip, and it just makes the lure sit and wobble, 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 like that. I mean, I've just taken so many fish trolling that out the back of the sib, right? And I'm not adverse to a bit of trolling. I'm really not, especially when the fishing is tough, because what it'll do is it'll find the fish for you, and rather than you having to like cast a million times to find the fish, and then you can just stop, knock off the engine, or go back out, circle back around, and start to drift in over the same patch and start to cast whatever it is you want to cast, whether it's soft plastics or hard lures or surface lures or whatever. But you know that there's probably, where there's one fish, there's probably a few more. So the spot is worth investigating. So that jerkbait fishes a bit deeper, right? Now it tells you on all the lures what the depth range is, right? So you'll know, like the Tarifa, for instance. I've got to take this out of the box, because anyway, I know somebody's buying this today, so they won't mind me just popping it out and showing it to you folks before it goes, right? Now, there are a number of reasons why I'm so fond of this lure, right? I mean, look at it, right? It's got just that nose of red on the underbelly, and it's got the classic, hang on, it's camera is so shit. Now maybe you can see that a bit better, can you? Not much. But it's got that flat, almost square, it's kind of off rectangular nose, right? There you can see it, right? And it gives the lure a very distinct wobble on the retrieve. And bass find that irresistible, I think. Like it's just, you think there's no fish there, then you put up a tarifa and you start banging fish and you realise, Jesus Christ, there was fish there all along, right? Now there are certain soft plastics that are very similar, but today we're talking hards. So that fish is, 33 centimeters. It's a super shallow lure. Like that's for well, fishing anyway, fishing the estuary, fishing the coast, fishing the beach, but it's for fishing in that top layer of water, right? It's for when the bass are up and active and at it, right? These I absolutely love. I just, oh, I'll tell you why. So, the one thing about the Tide Minnow range was they were all slim. So it was Tide Minnow Slim this, Tide Minnow Slim that, except for the surf, right? Now the surf has become incredibly hard to get, but there's nothing slim about that, right? That's quite fat, quite substantial, like you can see, quite a substantial body, right? So they've made it a bit thicker, giving it a bit more ballast, casts extremely well. Right? Again, similar to the Cockeye, to the X140, has a really tight action. I mean, listen to the weight transfer system, right? I mean, these are not silent lures, not a subtle approach to trying to catch sea bass, right? This is wakey time for the fish. So, just a really nice, really well made lure. I fish those quite hard, right? Like I give them a bit of shtick, right? I was out last year with a bunch of chaps from the north, lovely bunch of guys, Derek, and we came on a few bass, and it was late in the year, and the bass were feeding almost exclusively on joey mackerel. And I at the time wasn't dealing tackle. I was just doing a bit of guiding. So I had a lot of IMA stuff with me, and I tried all sorts of IMA lures, and I could not get a take until Derek put up a hound glide, and he's a pike fisherman, and he fished it really slowly, and it was deep and slow. Just wobbled back in, next thing, bang, he got hit. And it was just that the size and profile was right for a joey mackerel, because we all ended up fishing hound glides, all in different colours, and every one of us hit fish. Now, I have no doubt if I had had one of these bad boys here in my box, I'd have been hitting fish the whole way through, right? So this is the Sprat in Secret Awashi, and that is the ideal size, like it's a 120 for your sea bass, right? And a pretty good imitation color wise for the mackerel that are going to be out there, right? So again, you can see the 3-ball bearing internal weight transfer system goes right up to the top of the lure, falls right back into the bottom, makes it extremely castable, very stable in the water, and again with a very tight, distinct action. Right, so So that's you taking through a few of my lures. I mean, of them all, that there has probably caught the most fish. Like the feed shallow, it's just an incredible lure. I don't know how Feed did it. I don't know what their secret is, what the secret to the action is. I'm sure it's the flat nose or whatever. There are other flat nose lures out there. I just don't have the time. We've talked about those before, right? The 175 flyer. If you're a surf fisherman and you don't have one of those, you're missing out. And they're on special on the site at the minute, and quite a good reduction too. Like they're normally, I mean, that's the one thing. The price of duo has gone through the roof, but what can you do, right? But if you are a surf fisherman like myself, I love fishing in the surf. I love it. Just love being around pounding waves and hooking bass and just stripping your 3,000 size reel to the very last. But yeah, they kind of just went out of fashion, right? Everything became about soft plastics this and soft plastics that, soft plastics the other. And meanwhile, I very quietly have just always been fishing away. Always carry some really handy sort of hard lures with me. And I've always carried duo, I've always carried Lucky Craft. I'm working on getting my hands on Lucky Craft for the shop. You know, I need to find who's wholesaling Lucky Craft in the UK and Ireland, because it's, I mean, the Flash Minnow 110 is probably my favourite lure of all time. I mean, it's just an incredible lure. So that's about it for today, folks. I'm pretty shot tired actually. It's been one hell of a couple of weeks, you know, getting the business started and all the rest, but it's been a great success. So thank you so much for all your support. I really, really, really do appreciate it. I couldn't be happier, like, you know, after such a tough few years to find yourself where I am now. I feel incredibly blessed, incredibly lucky, like, you know, and, you know, they say hard work pays off. Well, they're right, you know, I worked hard. I was working while I was sick, I was working. And so bye-bye academia, hello fishing. Nice way to finish out. So I hope that helped. I hope it was informative about hard lures. If you have any questions or whatever, I'll do my best, by the way, to answer emails and and phone calls and all the rest. But I can't spend my whole life talking about fishing, like you know, because there are an enormous amount of people getting in touch. The other thing is the guiding is starting to fill up. So if you want days this summer, remember I'm away in July from the 7th to the 21st. I'm in Prince Edward Island, hopefully hammering really nice striped bass every day for 14 days. So I'm going to be away for that period, but other than that, we've got the early spring fishing and we've got the late summer fishing when I get back. I mean, August can be lethal down here in Waterford, right? It can be really, really, really productive. So those dates are filling up. My booking diary is getting fuller and fuller. So if you want guided fishing, get in touch as soon as you can. We'll get you sorted out. So that's it. Thanks again for your time, guys, and we'll talk more. We'll talk tomorrow or the day after. All right. Cheers. Tight lines, everyone.